Welcome to 60 Skills, and today we are going to review Ecstatic Body Postures by Belinda Gore, with a special mention of Dr. Felicitas Goodman. Now, this is an interesting book because fundamentally it explores the issue of the use of mudra. Now, most people consider mudra to be isolated to sacred hand postures. And what we're going to get into here is the fact that this is a bit of a oversimplification. So again, the foreword is by Felicitas Goodman, and she's written a variety of books on this topic. But for reasons I will get into as we explore this book, I actually prefer Belinda Gore's work for a beginner. Now, this book contains a variety of these sacred body postures. In fact, it's done by category: healing, divination, metamorphosis, spirit journeys, initiation, living myth, celebration, and of course, as with all books that I truly enjoy, it has a very useful appendix. Now, I don't necessarily endorse any of the individual postures contained within this book. What I am getting at is that you can go out and do a variety of very interesting field research on your own governing this. So she goes over the history of how they figured this out and who they studied with. And that's all well and good, but honestly not terribly interesting to most of us out there. And again, most of this is coached in Native American use, although there are some exceptions in the work that come from places like Greece and other outstanding places. Now, keep in mind that this is giving you a method by which to explore these things. Now, chapter 2, as we get into here, begins to get into the methodology. And what's interesting is they highly recommend combining this with ritual work of one kind or another. In general, they like the application of ritual music by use of a drum or other type instrument. Now, or a rattle or such thing. Now, they say it takes approximately 15 minutes. This seems to be about right in my experience. Most people need anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes to enter a deep state of trance, and that's what you're going to need in order to pull this off. So they go through a variety of other things of how to set up your ritual, and then they get into applications. In this one, the infamous healing issue involving esoterica. I won't delve too deeply into that, but it is interesting to see how they apply this. So the first posture mentioned is the Bear Spirit posture. Now they have a very delightful series of drawings in this book that are really useful. First, they start off with a little bit of history involving the Northwest Pacific Coast Indians. They also give you a lovely drawing of how to perform the posture on your own. And most importantly, they talk about what happens when you're doing it, as well as they give you a very detailed written description of how to perform everything. Now again, there are a couple dozen of these postures contained within the book, used for a variety of purposes. Some of the field reports are much longer, some of them are much shorter. But it's a fantastic work from a yogic practitioner's perspective because it gives you everything you're really looking for. It tells you where the material comes from. It gives you a background behind how it was used. And it gives you very accurate drawings of how to go about applying it to whatever you're working on. Honestly, as a practitioner, you really can't ask for a whole lot more. Now, again, most of these seem to be addressed from a Native American perspective, but what I would encourage people here to do is to go to various ancient history museums and start looking at these things. Now, most of what they're working with here appears to function at an astral or emotional level, and that has its uses. Keep in mind, anything that's summoned at that level is going to have a very heavy-duty egregoric component to it, and more importantly, a very heavy dual aspect to it. This isn't good, this isn't bad, it's just something to keep in mind. And again, keep in mind, some of these older cultures and the things that came along with them can be quite divorced from how we live our lives in the here and now. This is where, in particular, having access to your own Akasha and non-dual light can make these experiences much more manageable over a long period of time. They all can be quite cathartic, but the point that I'm getting at here is that the mudras, or various hand sigils that you see different groups use, can be performed in a whole body fashion, and that this has been a very old technology for a very long period of time. And so this is something that I think would be fun for many people here to explore. And again, the book gets into quite a bit of detail regarding things like metamorphosis or shape-shifting and different ways of going about doing that. So this can all be quite a bit of fun and something that honestly is best performed in a group. What I've found is that the use of live music, either through the beating of a drum or a rattle or a chime or whatnot, seems to work much better than a recorded medium. I suspect that's because when you're playing music live, there's a heavy astral energy component that is not captured in recordings. You, of course, will need to experiment with this, and the approach you take may be limited by practicality, as in not having many other people to work with, as functionality. So again, we go through all these different postures and different ways of doing it, and it's really quite interesting. Towards the end of the book, they get into more of the Neolithic stuff that can come out of Europe and other places, which is good too. Now, as always, the most interesting part of the book to me, once you get done with playing with it, is where they get into a functioning appendix. And lo and behold, they have a functioning bibliography of sorts in the endnotes. I would take a lot of time to go over some of these sources because most of the people writing these works are academics. They do not have a meditator, yogi, or magician's eye by which to guide their experiences. That said, once you have a fair enough amount of practice in, you can begin to work with this on your own and actually do really quite well in figuring out different techniques and things that happened. Again, Felicitas Goodman is mentioned many times throughout this work, and her book, Where the Spirits Ride the Wind, was definitely the predecessor and inspiration for this work. So there's also a list of related books, which again, you can take a look at your leisure. This is a slightly shorter review than I've been given, and part of the reason why is this book was incredibly specific in telling you how to engage its various methodologies. They avoided a lot of the theory that tends to be a little excess to need in most other works, and as such I can highly recommend this, not just for the experience of the various body postures contained within this book, but also from the standpoint of giving you a working methodology with which to experience the world around you. So I encourage you to go visit some ancient history museums, check out some steles, take a look at various esoteric sculpture and drawing, and have some fun. So, otherwise, train hard and be well.